Hello, everyone. We're continuing to move through our conversations with Yogananda. I'm Asha Nayaswami. This is my friend Keshava Betts. And we will pray. He'll do a couple of beautiful chants for us. We'll meditate for a few minutes, and then we'll start in on our book. So let's pray together. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, Friend, Beloved God, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Sri Yukteswar, Beloved Master, Paramahansa Yogananda, Saints of all religions, humbly we bow to all. Expand our hearts that we may receive your love. Calm our minds that we may feel your presence within. Give us devotion and courage and willpower that we may live in this world as beautiful, perfect instruments of your omnipresent love. Om. Peace. Amen. Oh, yes, of course. There you are.
Engrossed is the bee of my mind on the blue lotus feet of my divine mother. Engrossed is the bee of my mind on the blue lotus feet of my divine mother. Divine Mother, my Divine Mother, Divine Mother, my Divine Mother, Divine Mother, my Divine Mother, Divine Mother, my Divine Mother. Engrossed is the bee of my mind on the blue lotus feet of my divine mother. Engrossed is the bee of my mind on the blue lotus feet of my divine mother. Divine Mother, my Divine Mother, Divine Mother, my Divine Mother, Divine Mother, my Divine Mother, Divine Mother, my Divine Mother. Engrossed is the bee of my mind on the blue lotus feet of my divine mother. Engrossed is the bee of my mind on the blue lotus feet of my divine mother. Divine Mother, my Divine Mother, 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 Divine Mother, my Divine Mother. I may go far, farther than the stars. I may go far, farther than the stars, but I will be thine always. My Lord, I will be thine always. Devotees may come, devotees may go. Devotees may come, devotees may go, but I will be thine always. My Lord, I will be thine always. When I die, look into mine eyes. When I die, look into mine eyes. They will mutely say, I will be thine always. My Lord, I will be thine always. I may go far, farther than the stars. I may go far, farther than the stars, but I will be thine always. My Lord, I will be thine always. Devotees may come, devotees may go. Devotees may come, devotees may go. But I will be thine always. My Lord, I will be thine always. When I die, look into mine eyes. When I die, look into mine eyes. They will mutely say, I will be thine always. My Lord, I will be thine always. I may go far, farther than the stars. I may go far, farther than the stars, but I will be thine always. My Lord, I will be thine always. Devotees may come, devotees may go. Devotees may come, devotees may go, but I will be thine always, my Lord, I will be thine always. When I die, look into mine eyes. When I die, look into mine eyes. They will mutely say, I will be thine always. My Lord, I will be thine always. My Lord, I will be thine always.
Om, peace. Amen. Well, that's always a nice way to start this. Thank you so much for the music. Really, chanting really, oh well, it's great fun. So here we are. We're still limping our way to the end of this book. Let's see, today is May 5th. May 19th, which happens to be Swami's birthday, we won't be having a class because we're having a special program for him. But that's not next week, that's the week after. I don't know, we'll see. I think that we're not going to make it before the 19th, but we'll see. So we're at number 457 right now. This is a longer one. It's this is Swami speaking. It seemed to be my fate to have to report things to the Master when others didn't dare to speak. Some people had been speaking against Dr. Lewis, saying that he had let the Master down in certain important ways. The criticisms were valid, and I spoke to the Master about them. The highest value to him, however, was loyalty. He was deeply loyal to his friends, even when they disappointed him. Thus, I, as the messenger, had to bear his indignant response. Master said, when you have been tested through many years as he has, then you have earned the right to speak these things. Master surely knew I didn't hold these attitudes personally, but he felt it necessary to make that point in front of many others. He then went upstairs and telephoned Dr. Lewis, simply to affirm his deep friendship for him. The truth is, Doctor had his little foibles and had indeed let the Master down in certain important matters concerning the work. The Master, however, like Jesus, was saying essentially, let him who is without sin cast the first stone. Even today, Dr. Lewis is criticized by many. I myself know that he had things to overcome, but as the expression has it among Jews in America, so what else is new? We are all struggling toward perfection. Only after one has achieved it has he a right to criticize. And having once achieved perfection, one finds that perfection itself eliminates the very desire to criticize anyone. It's a very interesting reading, actually. The specifics, I don't know everything about Dr. Lewis in any way, but I know that Dr. Lewis had a certain anxiety about money, and Master at times did things that made Dr. Lewis very nervous. There was some exchange, which I think was involved here, where Master had bought some property. He'd bought a papaya grove. I don't know the details about this, but Master purchased a papaya grove. He was always looking for ways to make Mount Washington self-sufficient, both in being able to provide their own food and also in having enterprises that Master felt would endure through difficult economic times and would give the monastery more stability than just relying on donations. So this papaya grove was part of that plan. And somehow in the course of things, Dr. Lewis panicked and sold the property, even though Master didn't want him to. And if I'm not mistaken, there were also some issues with stock purchases where Master was trying to generate money for the ashram and requested that certain stocks not be sold and that and I could be incorrect in this, but I believe that Dr. Lewis was involved also in not being able to stay the course with Master where certain financial things were concerned. That part I know is true. The details I'm less certain of. I also know that Swami talked about how Dr. Lewis had a desire for position. He had a desire for importance. He wanted to be recognized. These are not small things. The reason I'm trying to fill it out a little bit, and it's funny in here, I've been just reading it out loud, I think 3 different times. Swami just says that, and in fact, Dr. Lewis did let Master down. Let Master down in the sense of not being able to have the strength to get past his own fears or his own judgment of things. Sometimes it's fear, and it's sometimes, well, I know a little better than he does, so I'm going to do this because I think I'm right. And I know other characteristics that Swami talked about of Dr. Lewis. He used the word, I want to be fair, but Dr. Lewis had his foibles. Let's just say that Swami says it very directly. He had things to overcome. At the same time, Dr. Lewis gave his life to Master. And on that level, you see, there's a difference between the depth of our sincerity and our ability to carry out the ideals that we ourselves are holding. I had an interesting discussion with a friend who was talking to me about some unresolved issues he had with a third person, someone that we both know. And I was asking him, well, what happened between you? And he used the word that he was betrayed by that person. I said, well, describe it to me. And so, but what was described to me was not a deliberate action to hurt, but the person that we both knew had a limited capacity within themselves to live up to the highest ideals we could all imagine for ourselves. So then the question is, who was betrayed? Was it because they tried to make a commitment and weren't able to keep it? Is the person who was disappointed, were they betrayed? Or did the person actually simply betray themselves? Betray themselves in the sense of having set a goal that they were unable to meet. Betray is not actually the right word. But the failure really had nothing to do with the other person. The failure is entirely one's own. One tries to live up to high ideals. Now, deliberate treachery, deliberately setting up someone and then betraying them, taking advantage of someone else's goodwill and then using it for selfish motive, actually knowing what the truth is and then manipulating someone with untruths. That's a different level. But when we merely aspire and then find ourselves unable to match our aspiration with action, that's just the way human nature is. So Master with his disciples, well, Swami put it to me in a different way. Swamiji said it's very tempting, he said, when he was talking about the fact that he had a lot of people at Ananda were holding different positions of responsibility, and we carried them out, some of us better than others, or some of them better than others, because I certainly was on the others' side of it. Swamiji said, it's very tempting to think if only this one had the qualities of that one, and if only this one could be a little better at that, and so on. He said, but if I expected perfection of my friends, Swami said, I would be a very lonely man. And so even the Master, we get this idea that the Guru is very demanding, because he is. As Swami writes in The Path, very few people understood the spiritual revolution to which Master was calling them. And Master, Swami said, could be just charming and kind and supportive in every way. But when serious issues were at stake, Master was stern and unrelenting. But that doesn't translate into him being harsh. Or let me think what I'm trying to say. Master always understood. He just always understood. And so he knew Dr. Lewis. He knew that Dr. Lewis had spiritual greatness in him. Dr. Lewis was his first disciple in America. Dr. Lewis remained faithful to Master's work his entire life after that. Gave up everything and came to California and lived with him and served him, he and his wife both, and their whole family in every way that they could. But he had limitations. There were vrittis within him that were not yet resolved. Swami was talking about many of the disciples once who were with Master, and he described it. He said this, the way Swami put it, because when we were in litigation against Master's organization for many years, we were often a little surprised at some of the actions of some of the very oldest and most advanced disciples. It was confusing to us that such self-evidently great souls with such self-evidently enormous good karma to have lived with Master and served him and been faithful to him all those years could yet, to our way of looking at things, behave most uncharitably and sometimes even untruthfully. It was really quite surprising. Swami described it in this way. He said, there are many compartments to the subconscious mind. He said, and many of those compartments can be absolutely clear and free and shining, but that doesn't mean that there's not other pockets of delusion still to be cleaned out. So what that means is, when you see spiritual greatness in someone, the mere fact that they may also have some limitations does not in any way make that spiritual greatness less so. That's how Swami put it. In that area, that person is great. In that way, that person is great. And yet, this here also will have to be taken care of. When Swamiji was in Self-Realization Fellowship, his personal nemesis was a disciple named Taramata. And for various reasons that primarily had to do with past lives rather than the present life. Well, it's a very complicated story, actually. I'm going to hold up Light Bearer. It was necessary in telling the story of Swamiji. I had to tell a lot of stories about SRF and the way the disciples treated him and the litigation that we were engaged in, because so much of the way Swami built Ananda was related to what he'd experienced and received from SRF. And SRF was also a very interesting and extremely helpful example of alternative ways of operating in the spiritual realm and the implications and complications of all of them. So his sister disciple, Taramata, whom Swami admired greatly for her willpower and her determination and her brilliance. He said in many ways she was a genius. And he really enjoyed her conversation and many things about her because she was so outstanding. But they had had past lives together. And after Taramata died, I'm skipping ahead in the story, and this is in Light Bearer, she inspired a messenger, a man. She appeared to a man in a vision, actually, and sent him to Swami to deliver a message. And the message was, in past lives, and Swami actually talked about when they were both disciples of Adi Shankaracharya, the first Shankaracharya. Swami, they had been brothers. Swami had been the older brother. And after the Guru died, it's an important point, after the Guru died, Swamiji left the ashram and took many of the disciples with him. And Taramata, as his younger brother, was outraged at what she saw was his betrayal and considered him a traitor to the Guru after that. Swami Kriyananda said, in this life in SRF, he said, Taramata's feeling against him was already present. And what she did is she interpreted everything he did as supporting that feeling. He said, but he was very aware that the feeling was there already, and she was just constantly looking for evidence. So in this posthumous message that she sent to Swamiji, she basically said, I was wrong. I remembered in that incarnation, and I carried into this lifetime, the belief that you were disloyal to the Guru, when in fact you are not. And Swamiji himself said that he had times of doubt in his many incarnations, but by this time he had completely overcome it, and he was absolutely loyal. And there's many things he had to say. It was necessary that he be expelled from SRF because he could never have accomplished what Master wanted him to accomplish in the context of that organization. The running of that organization was the karma of other individuals. It was not Swamiji's destiny to do that. Swami had the destiny to do Ananda. But partly perhaps because of lifetimes in which he felt he hadn't been faithful. He said he never would have left SRF on his own. He had to be forcibly expelled and given no opportunity ever to reconcile, which is exactly what happened. And Taramata was the engineer of that dismissal. So it was an error, Swami felt. He felt that Master used what really wasn't such good karma on her part, but he used it to engineer what needed to happen. The end of all of this is that Swami spoke about Taramata, and she had many limitations that he was aware of. And in the end of her life, she had a stroke, and for like almost 2 years, she was incapacitated by that stroke. And she herself just said she was a very honest devotee in certain ways. She said, I had to learn compassion. So she was made helpless. From having been so powerful and so strong, she was made helpless. And for 2 years, she had to just live helpless, dependent on the service of others, so that she could learn compassion. But what Swami said about her is she was a great soul, and she had great willpower, and she had great determination on the spiritual path. So whatever errors she made, whatever delusions still held her, as soon as she understood them, she had the willpower to face them and overcome them. So you see, that's all that matters, and that's all that Master cares about. All that Master cares about is that we are sincerely making the effort, the best effort that we can, and we are sincerely receptive to His guiding power to the limits of our ability to receive it. But we can't necessarily just dissolve the limits of our ability just because it would be nicer if we could. Because that's why we're disciples. That's why we seek God, is because we have those limitations that we have to live with. And inevitably, we have to make mistakes. That's just what happens. And it behooves us, to take to model our behavior after the behavior of the great ones, because we see that's how they behave. Swami tells another similar story to this when there was a man from Hollywood who was a singer in Hollywood and fairly well known. And he would come to see Master often, and he loved being with Master. And Master liked him and would give him lots of energy and would be very outgoing and very supportive and showered a great deal of affection and love on him. And the Hollywood man expressed an interest in these teachings, and Master wanted Swamiji to teach him the meditation methods, the techniques, conceivably prepare him to take Kriya. Master wasn't going to do that himself. He commissioned Swamiji to take care of it. So Swami would make appointments with this man, and where this man was exceedingly attentive to Master, he didn't think anything about just not showing up for the appointment with Swami, not calling him, not apologizing, nothing, just getting Swami to commit his time and then not bothering to come through. This happened several times, and Swamiji was beginning to think this man is not really sincere. And so the next time he came, so Swamiji told Master that this man, is eager to be in your company, but he's not sincere about following these teachings. And Master said, well, the next time he comes to visit, we'll have fun with him. And so the next time he came to visit, Master was sweeter than ever. He lavished just total affection on him, treated him as if nothing at all there was no ripple in the flow of love of their affection. Swami, by contrast, who was also present, I think, for lunch or whatever it was, treated him very coldly. He'd sort of had it with him. This man was pretending to be a friend, and he wasn't really a friend. So Swami was very cool with him. And after the guests left, Swami was still with Master, and Master said to Swamiji, "You were very cold to him." And Swami said, "Well, I'm tired of this, He acts like he's going to be interested, and he has no regard for me." And Master says, "I wonder how all of you would feel if I treated you as coldly as that." And he went further to say, "I wonder if all of you would be able to stay on the path if I treated you as coldly as that." And so you see what Master saw. He saw the opposite. This man has a weakness. I need to give him even more love to draw him into this way of life. Sometimes sternness is required. Swamiji gave a very interesting, but not as often as we think, just to finish that thought. When Swami was giving instructions to some of us once, in the first years when he had sent us out away from Ananda village, from our childhood home, out to found the Ananda colonies, the communities that we have now, like this Palo Alto community and Portland and Seattle, the communities we have. He had a group of us, and he was just talking to us about our leadership, and we were all a bit new at it, and he was helping us. And he said, as a leader, he said, it's presumptuous not to take your own spiritual well-being into account. Meaning, we're not so free that we can just pretend that our actions have no consequences for us. We have to always realize that we too, are walking a fine line, trying to behave, trying to discipline ourselves to behave properly. We can't just pretend that we're free when we're not free. And he said, for example, there might be a situation in which a stern response might be appropriate to a person if their behavior would warrant a stern response. But he said, if it's not good for you to be stern, that what you have to learn is to be more compassionate and more charitable. He said, you must do what you know is the best for you. It was an interesting comment, isn't it? Because also you can see how, a position of responsibility, which is a way of saying a position of leadership, it must be treated with great respect for the powers of delusion, especially a position of leadership where it implies spiritual leadership. Because it's very easy either to become vain about one's own accomplishments, or misguided about one's own accomplishments, or confused about how to present oneself. Because if one is in a position of spiritual leadership, often people will put upon you certain expectations of who you are. And it's very important, if one finds oneself in such a position, not to allow the expectations of others, the wrong expectations of others, or the projection of others about you to actually become your own self-definition, or the projection of others upon you to cause you to try to meet those projections and match those projections instead of actually being authentically and sincerely who you are. Swamiji pointed out that many well-known teachers that he knew over the years, he watched them become what they thought they were supposed to be rather than merely be themselves. So it's something very sensitive to watch. And part of what gives us the confidence within Ananda, I think, for the most part, or I would say as far as I know for everyone, not to get sucked into that trap, is comments like this. Here's Dr. Lewis. He was very highly placed in Self-Realization Fellowship. He was very highly regarded by Master, and he had flaws. He had faults that everyone knew about. That's just who we are. The other part of this that I really am touched by is Master's words. When you have been tested through many years, as Dr. Lewis has, then you will have earned the right to speak of him in this disparaging way. When you have been tested over many years, as Dr. Lewis had. This also, the way this has come the way I've come to understand this in my life, because I've been with Ananda, I've known Swami for 50 years, and I've been with Ananda since 1971. So that's really quite a long time. And I've seen by now, of course, hundreds, probably thousands of people, move in and out of Ananda. And gradually over the years, some people are more elegant in the way they express things, or some people just have the karma to be very magnetic. They have attractive personalities, they have attractive personas, they're clever, they're witty, they're entertaining, they're talented, all kinds of things. So, some people just are a bigger splash, a bigger picture in the story. But over the years, I've really come to appreciate that those things may or may not be indicative of anything that really matters. And I've really come to appreciate the fact that the most important thing is not to quit. The most important thing is no matter what comes, you stay with it. There was, to just give you an example, there was a situation in one of the communities where a person was treated in an unfortunate manner by someone in authority. And that person, and they lost a job, and they shouldn't have been fired, but they were. And, it just happened. It's just somebody made a mistake and so on like that. And then the person let that mistake sort of grow in their mind and gradually felt alienated from all of Ananda and wandered off. Fortunately, they came back, but they wandered off for 10 years, a long time. Another friend was sort of saying, was trying to defend that person. This was during the interlude before they came back. Tried to defend that person. Well, after all, they were mistreated. After all this happened, and that friend was talking to me. Well, after all this happened and that happened, they were justified in feeling the way they felt. It's interesting. So I said to the person who was making the complaint, because I happen to know their life really well, and I said, "A lot of really hard things have happened to you, haven't they?" And they said, "Yeah." I said, "And a lot of people haven't always behaved as well as they could have toward you, have they?" She said, "No, that's right." I said, "But you never once thought of leaving, did you?" She said, "No, I never did." I said, "Well, there it is. It's not whether bad things are going to happen. It's not whether even you will be the subject, the object of other people's limitations. You'll be the brunt of their limitations." Just as I was talking to my friend earlier who felt betrayed by someone. No, they didn't betray you. They just exposed their own limitations to you. But are you going to leave because of that? When you find out that other devotees, even devotees who are sufficiently developed to have positions of responsibility, but are not yet perfectly capable of executing those positions perfectly, is that going to be a reason why you're going to leave the ashram? I had a most amusing one of I have many favorite moments in my position of responsibility, and this is definitely one of them. This man came to me, and he thought it would be helpful for him to list out for me all my shortcomings as a leader. And he was an astute observer of my character. So he started just listing out for me all the ways in which I fell short of being ideal in my position. And I mean, fortunately, the list didn't go on and on. He was actually, in a weird way, I think he was really trying to be helpful. He really wasn't trying to tear me to pieces. So he just said enough so that I got the picture. And by the grace of God, everything he said was true. And by the grace of God, I didn't feel at all anxious about being confronted by my limitations. They just were my limitations. And I said to him, God gave me the words, "Do you think if I knew how to do this job, I would still be doing it?" It's like, I'm here to learn. If I were perfect at it, why would I still have it? What would be the good of that for me? Fortunately, the man was honest enough to enjoy the joke, and we just sort of went on from there. But when we look around, of course, everybody's learning. Why else would they be in the positions that they're in? And if they're having to learn on us, it must be our karma too. I mean, I'm not saying these are easy, but what I was also wanting to say in here, because sometimes it gets really hard. Sometimes it gets really, really, really hard. And I know that that's true also. But are we going to run away from it, or are we going to stand in and face it? Are we going to give up our discipleship because some of our guru bhais annoy us? And that's, it's a very good question. What are we going to do? But what I was saying about my longevity on the path is I've seen a lot of people really be tested. And because God is, as Swami said, if he sees that you're sincere and that you have the potential to be stronger than you are, he's going to press you. He's going to press on you to see if you can be stronger, or the whole community. When Ananda was really subject to really terrible persecution through the courts, this whole horrible, dishonest lawsuit that really just called us a sham organization and tried to prove that Ananda was morally reprehensible. Swami said, it's not because we've done anything wrong. It's because we've done so much that's right. He said, God, seeing the sincerity and spiritual power concentrated here, naturally wants to purify it and strengthen it by challenging us, by challenging everything we hold dear and forcing us to go inside ourselves and ask ourselves, why do I believe what I do? Why am I loyal? Why have I put my faith in this? Why have I put my life behind it? Is my understanding so shallow that when somebody, presents a fabricated challenge to the quality of what I'm engaged in, that I just fold up and go home? When you have been tested over years, as Dr. Lewis has been tested, then you have the right to speak. And so when I see devotees who I know have been through so much, who are still standing firm in their discipleship, one just has to stand up and applaud. And if they're small-minded in little ways and haven't conquered every delusion and can still be subject to God knows what, it's like he who is without sin then cast the first stone. And Master also, just by that statement, he's telling you what he prizes. Master himself said, God doesn't expect you to overcome delusion. He just expects you to do your best to resist. We can't always make things perfect. Someone was talking to me recently about a very difficult karma they're facing. It involves family members and, very difficult family members. Many people have difficult relationships. A strange uncle, an odd sibling, a difficult parent. It's part of the story. We don't come together as families merely to rejoice. We also come together as families also to learn. And my friend was trying to insist that they had a karmic obligation to sort of put out some effort to fix this really impossible situation, which I think is completely incapable of happy resolution, because the other party in the story is not capable of happy resolution. And my friend doesn't have enough power to transform the whole world. But they were saying, basically they just wanted to bring it to a harmonious resolution. I said, wishful thinking. Just wishful thinking is not spiritual. It's just refusing to just look a situation in the eye and see what it is. In the many years that we were facing litigation, which was 12 years of litigation, in which Swamiji's guru bhais were consistently and unrelentingly bent on dismantling his work, Swamiji had to just gradually, and it took him longer than he himself was pleased to admit, to really just see the evidence in front of him and realize that this was really happening. And these people to whom he had given his loyalty and friendship were not giving loyalty and friendship to him. And watching him struggle for a long time to just really accept the evidence of what was right in front of him. It's not easy. It's not easy at all. Wishful thinking plays a large part in it. And the way Master dealt with Dr. Lewis is important for us to understand, because you see, that's how Master deals with us. It's not that he doesn't know what our limitations are, but he is loyal to us because of our loyalty to him, and he's loyal to us because of all the times we have succeeded. Not only in this lifetime, but in many lifetimes before. Perhaps we haven't sailed through without mishap, but our sincerity will always carry it. Think about Judas. There was Judas. He was there with Jesus. He was one of the 12 apostles. It's the most famous story of betrayal, probably in all of history. Certainly it stands way up there. I mean, the name Judas is a Judas. It's become its own word. That means that you betray your ideals. His very name has become an anathema. And, it wasn't good what he did. There's no way around it. He didn't cause Jesus to be crucified. But woe unto him who plays the dark role to make that happen. Now, Master said that Judas reincarnated as a disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, that Jesus sent Judas to Sri Ramakrishna to be liberated, which also sort of plays havoc with our neat ideas of who's a disciple of whom and how all of this works, but that's beside the point. And that Master said he knew him. He knew him in this lifetime because their lives overlapped. When Master was a disciple of Sri Yukteswar, this man was living in Ramakrishna's ashram. He was a disciple there. Ramakrishna died just before Yogananda was born. So there was an overlap, you see. Yogananda was young and this disciple was older, but their lives coincided, and they both lived in Calcutta. They both lived right in the same area. So Master knew him. And he was liberated in that lifetime. Now, what the point I was trying to make is Judas made a bad boo-boo. That was really there's no way that you can say that that was a small mistake. That was a very big mistake. But Judas never gave up on being a disciple. Whatever lifetimes he had to go through, whatever he suffered, somewhere inside of him, you see, he never gave up. Because it took, obviously, a number of centuries, but who knows what state of Jivan Mukta, what state of realization Judas had reclaimed, because he was, after all, one of the 12. He was a highly advanced apostle, and he held on. So whenever we feel that whatever we've done is too much to overcome, it's very important for us to think of that example. And here's Dr. Lewis, who did things that people were outraged about, who let Master down in significant ways. But Master was absolutely loyal to him. You see, that's the kind of love that the Guru gives us, and we have to know that always. Now, let's go to another one tonight, which is number 458. A disciple was having difficulty going breathless. "What can I do about it, Master?" he asked. "It is a question," replied the Master, "of persuading the mind that your natural state is freedom from the body. At first, the devotee is like a bird that has lived in a cage for 20 years. Someone opens the cage door and the bird thinks, 'Oh, that wide, terrible world!' And trembling cheerfully, it retreats to the rear of its little cage to which it has grown accustomed. The mind, similarly, at its first taste of inner freedom, becomes frightened and clings to body consciousness. Reflect, however, that it is natural for the bird to fly. It is natural also for the soul to soar in omnipresence." I remember many, many years ago, I had some very small experience in meditation, so small that I don't even remember what it was, but it was unfamiliar to me. And I remember asking Swamiji about it, just, I didn't understand what had happened to me. It's odd, I have no recollection of what the experience is. but I think it wasn't significant enough to remember. But whatever it was, I asked Swami about it. And Swamiji was often very interesting. You would ask a question, you would think you were asking a question, and then he would answer something else. It would often happen in satsang. Sometimes it would annoy people because they would ask this question and he would answer this question. But I tended to start from the premise that Swami knew what he was doing. So rather than thinking that he had made a mistake, I tried to understand why he would do what he'd do. And many times he was either using the opportunity to try to correct a quality in the questioner that needed to be corrected, or he was answering the question that the person didn't even know he'd asked, or he would giving an answer that was 5 steps down the road from where this question was, but was still nonetheless the answer to the issue, many different things. And then sometimes his hearing aid batteries weren't working and he just didn't hear properly. But that was later in life. But at this time, I presented to Swami my little story, whatever it was, about meditation. And Swami said it like this: don't be afraid. And he said, don't be afraid. Um, let's see, don't be afraid. Well, he just said, don't be afraid. And I said, I'm not afraid, just like that. And then I sort of heard myself. If you're not afraid, why did your voice just go up to that very high level? And why did your throat close off? Those are the qualities of someone who is afraid. But of course, my conscious mind was in a completely different place, partly because during those days I was always trying to be the person I thought I was supposed to be. And so, why would someone be afraid of an unusual experience in meditation? After all, I'm a yogi, I want to go breathless. I want the cage door to open. I want to fly into omnipresence. Therefore, that's who I am. So when I tell him that the cage door had opened a millimeter and I had rushed to the back and grabbed the bars, and he pointed that out to me, it was extremely necessary for me to repudiate it immediately. I spent a long time in my life, well, not really that long, but I spent more time than I should have, trying to be who I was supposed to be instead of trying to be who I actually am. I mean, it's not such a simple project, but I spent a couple of years particularly just trying to put on a good face to Swamiji, even though he was asking all this of me and I was doing none of it, but I was pretending that I was. It was so complicated. And when it finally just the whole house of cards just fell to pieces because it was just becoming ridiculous and it just couldn't sustain itself. And Swami said, basically you were trying to look like a good disciple. But then he said, but you never fooled me. And I'm a very practical person, at least I can be. And I thought, I didn't think I said, oh my, I said, what a colossal waste of energy. And Swami just said, yes, you never fooled me. And you never really fool yourself either. You're just out there pretending to be something and every part of you knows you're not. That's why your voice gets so thin. That's why when I say, I'm not afraid, it's like 1/10 of me can say that. So 9/10 of me just goes silent and this one little tenth just tries to squeak it out in the space that's left. But I heard myself. And then he said to me, he said, you'll feel more comfortable after you have more experience like this. Because I can't even remember what the experience was about, I can't say what it is right now. But it isn't. It is natural for us, but it's not necessarily familiar for us. These things that come to us. And people often talk about, they feel energy here, they feel this thing there, they see this, they see that. And there's this natural nervousness that comes to us because we feel out of control. The ego likes to just sort of have what it has. In the Festival of Light, we have the little bird, the allegory of the little bird going through one day of its evolution, representing eons of our time. And the little bird, at first it's buffeted about by the winds and it just doesn't know what to do with all that wind. And then the wind tells it, surrender to me. In other words, spread your wings and let me carry you, instead of always trying to fight against it. And so after a time, the little bird surrenders. And then he finds that instead of, when he was fighting against that current, he was exhausting himself and not making any progress. When he cooperated with the current, he soon found himself soaring joyously high above the clouds. Then he enjoys that for a while. That's nice. Hours passed and night falls. And the little bird says, "How can I fly in this darkness?" So it's sort of like I've grown accustomed to going on the currents, but that's when the sun is shining and my eyes are open. So I still have this feeling of control, but now it's dark and I don't know where I'm going. I'm going on these currents and I have no idea what I'm doing. And then the night whispers, and it's very interesting what the night whispers. Peace awaits you in the unknown. The night doesn't say to him, we've got it all worked out. Here's your instruction book. This is what you do. Here's your night vision goggles. You can just sort of make this all work. You can stay in control. That's not at all what the night says, because we're crossing over into a deeper level of what? Faith, surrender. Well, surrender is the word Swami uses. Peace awaits you in the unknown. Surrender to me and your strength will be renewed. And then in the festival it says, and after a time, and we wonder, after how long a time? And after a time, and then we call him the tiny rebel, which I always love that phrase. The tiny rebel surrendered, and he found the night's counsel true. And rain and sky and something tell us that, that it's not coming to us to make us weak, it's coming to us to make us strong. That all of these challenges that we have to meet, when we have to walk against the wind, we develop a tremendous strength. When we have to have the courage to move with the tide, we develop a tremendous strength. So this is the balancing point that Master is talking about here. We have to persuade ourselves that this is natural to us, that we don't have to just cling to the known. This is the great power of subconsciousness, the way we use subconsciousness in talking about yoga. Subconscious is everything that we already are, everything that's brought us right to this point. And see, where it gets a little confusing is many of the strengths we've developed that have brought us to this point now have to be put aside in order to go to the next point. And this is where the real refining process of the spiritual path goes. That we just, no matter how boldly we step out into the unknown, there's always going to be another edge to it. There's always going to be yet one more step until perfection, till absolute perfection is achieved, until there's simply nothing left. Swami had an aura picture taken. I really don't know how these things work, but I myself have experimented with these aura cameras, whatever they are. One of the men who invented one of the major ones of these actually has his workshop just a few miles from here. Swami became very interested in this program, which is actually a computer program. And you put your hands, in this particular one I worked on, you put your hands on these sensors like this, and then somehow through the software that this man invented, and he's really, I met him. His name escapes me at the moment, but he's a genuine article. He's not he really has invented something here, and he's a wonderful man. This on the computer screen, your whole aura begins to appear, and people can interact with you. You can watch your aura shift. You can meditate and watch it change. It's really quite fascinating. Well, years ago, Swami was in Australia actually, and they had what they called the aura camera. It was an earlier iteration, and they took a picture of Swami's aura, and his aura was just indigo blue with this little bit of a magenta color in it, but his whole aura was indigo, and his physical self was nearly obscured, was largely obscured by this deep indigo color that was across him. It's really a fabulous picture. And the woman who took the picture, this story is in Swami Kriyananda as we have known him. I'm trying to remember where I printed it. And the woman who took the picture, and then it had to be developed or it had to be printed in some way because this was like 1980. It was a whole different technology. And when she saw that aura picture, she came out and touched Swami's feet. She knelt in front of him. She said she'd taken hundreds of aura pictures and she'd never seen anything like his. Now, later on when we were talking about this, and in another context, Swami made the interesting observation. He said that he's absolutely the same person when he's asleep as when he's awake. Now, it is sort of like, it sort of was an odd comment, but what he was trying to say is, what he actually did say, is that there's no subconscious. And actually, I might have toned that down in that book because Swami, that's how Swami said it to me directly, but I'm not sure he allowed me to print it quite as bluntly as I just said it. Yes, in fact, he didn't let me print it quite as bluntly. And he also said that was his explanation for why he had that unusual aura. Because there's no contradicting vrittis. It's just to say that the chakras are free. There's no subconsciousness because there's no vrittis. The subconsciousness is where all the vrittis are. It's where all the energy committed to certain realities are stored. And committing to those certain realities, anything other than I am one with God, you commit to your body, to your personality, to your fears, to your memories, to your aspirations, whatever, to your attachments, your hurts. That's committed energy. That's why they keep replaying, is because they're stored here and they just keep replaying. That's why when the door is open, even though it's our natural state to fly free, we have all this committed energy to our limitations, to our comforts, to the need to stay in control. And we cling to those. We cling to them sort of like whether we want to or not. And that's why Master said we have to train ourselves to understand that breathlessness is our natural state. It's not a state that we suddenly need to become alarmed because, oh my goodness, I'm not breathing. It's like, and to be free of the cage, to be free of the body, to be free of self-identification. But I mean, I've had to ask myself, really honestly, and of course I work on this like everyone does, all of us do as devotees, could I just let go of everything? If God appeared to me now, what would I grab for? This is sort of silly, but it was a true story when our friend Paula, who died a number of years ago and died in a state of tremendous freedom, just consciously left her body. God, Christ, Guru. It's the last thing she said. And she just passed away completely consciously. But prior to that, a few years prior to that, she'd had a near-death experience when she wasn't very systematic. She was very intuitive. And she had a bad cough, and she ran a retail store for Ananda for a number of years. And because of her marvelous intuition, she was very successful because she just knew what items to buy and she knew what items to recommend when the customers came in. So a lot of it was women's clothing, and she was extremely good at that. I would walk in and she'd say, I have 3 new dresses for you. And they were always perfect, that she'd bought at the gift show just because she knew I would want them. This was before Nayaswami days, well before all of this. But she had a bad cough, and she was actually taking codeine cough syrup. But instead of measured doses, she was just kind of sipping it just to keep the cough at bay. And when she went back to her hotel room, alone in her hotel room, she began to lose consciousness, and she realized that she had seriously OD'd on this cough medicine. And it was a narcotic. This was not a small thing. This was a very serious thing that she'd done. And she was alone in the hotel room, and she was so losing consciousness so rapidly and losing cognition, she couldn't comprehend how to get to the phone and call for help. The only thing she could think of is if she could crawl into the bathroom and maybe splash water on her face. So she sort of knelt between the toilet and the bathtub and turned on the bathtub water and started splashing water on her face. The lid of the toilet happened to be up, and she's sort of just there, and she actually literally, she can see the tunnel of light. And she knows enough to know, wow, it looks like I might be leaving my body. And Paula was, I mentioned about her facility with fashion and with clothes. She had marvelous taste and she had wonderful clothes and she had lots of them. It was just something that she really enjoyed. So she's sitting there, and she tells all this later. She's sitting there between the bathtub and the toilet with the lid up, looking into the toilet bowl. She starts going down down the tunnel of light. It crosses her mind, and she says, "Master, am I going to die looking into a toilet bowl?" It just struck her like, this is not how I thought it was going to happen. But nonetheless, she's just going. She feels herself going, and she's well down that tunnel. She's really leaving her body. And she remembered that day at the gift show, she had seen a really cute outfit and she really liked it. And she put a deposit on it and she was going to go back and buy it the next day. She remembered that outfit and she started coming back out of the tunnel. Yeah, because she was thinking about something in the material world that she wanted to have. Now, to my mind, I said to her later when she told me this, and then she began to come back. And it took her a few hours, she said, before it had really run through her system enough for her to feel she was really safe. But she was safe, and a couple of hours later, she was able to call one of her colleagues, and then they came over and took care of her. But I asked her the question, did you buy it? Now, to my mind, it saved her life. And conceivably, she would want to buy it and just wear it forever with gratitude for God. She looked at me like I was crazy. She said, absolutely not. She's going into the tunnel of light and she's thinking about clothes, like an outfit that she wants. She was appalled by the whole thing. I mean, she was glad not to be dead, but she was appalled by that. You don't want to be thinking about your favorite outfit at such a moment. You want to be thinking about the light. Now, of course, it wasn't her time to go. She lived many years after that and had many experiences that were very important to her. But that is how it works, you see. We begin to go out in freedom, and then all the things that we're still attached to, they call to us. And we're trying to exit through the spiritual eye, but all the self-definitions are back here at the medulla. And so the energy is, when we die from the edges, the same way that the spirit comes into the body. It starts at the medulla, it creates the spine, and from the spine, the body is created. That's why if you watch the embryo develop in all those pictures that they have, it starts out as a single stick, which is just the spine, and then begins to sprout. And it sprouts, in other words, it grows from the center out. Every living thing grows from the center out. The power of the apple tree is in the seed. It's in the center of the seed. That tiny seed has the life force, and it grows from the center out. If you watch even little sprouts grow, I make sprouts for food, alfalfa sprouts, lentil sprouts, and I put the closed little lentil in there, and then I soak it, and then the next day it's a little fatter, and then its little skin breaks, and you see this little bit of yellow, and then this tiny little thing begins growing out of it. It doesn't grow from the outside in, it expands from the inside out. And so when we incarnate and take a body, we expand from the inside out. And we exit in reverse order. We contract from the outside in. And we contract all the way to the spine, and then the energy comes up the spine. And we exit either out the medulla or out the spiritual eye. Now, I don't know how absolute that is, so I'm not going to say it's an either or because I honestly don't know. But I have watched people die. I've been with people when they died. I haven't watched them like a science experiment, but I've been present when people have died. And one woman in particular, it was really, when she finally just left her body, it was really dramatic. I mean, first she lost control over her limbs, which had been happening slowly, but it was like you could just see the life force come to the base of her spine, and you could sort of see it in the breath. And then the diaphragm would stop, and then she was breathing from here, and then it just would go up, and the pulse went to here, and then it all stopped. It was so clear. But you see, if we have a lot of committed energy in all those vrittis, when that energy starts coming up, those vrittis are still going to hold. They're going to hold us down. Just like Paul is going out into that tunnel, and the attachment here is holding her. A friend of mine also had, who went very far out but didn't die. But he commented later, he said, it's not so easy to get out of your body. He said the threads of karma are quite complex and quite interwoven. Actually, come to think of it, when Paula did die, when she finally did pass, she had a lot of us with her. She asked a lot of us to be with her, to help her. And in the very last cycle, it would have been in the last half hour or so, when she took the oxygen away, she had supplemental oxygen, she took it away, she woke us all up, she sat up, and she was ready to leave. She knew it was the time. And then she said, this is very hard, you have to help me. And then I believe Jyotish was present, and he started chanting Om, and we started all chanting Om together. And she said, God, if I remember correctly, I don't want to misrepresent this, but if I remember, she said, God, Christ, Guru. And those were the last words she spoke. But this is very hard, you have to help me. Because the threads of karma are very complicated. So our meditation practice is our practice dying. I mean, going breathless is a big step in that direction, but all of meditation is a practice for death, meaning we want to disconnect ourselves from everything that we think of as being ourselves. We want to disconnect ourselves from this self-identity. My friend, I call him my friend, but I don't know him personally. Michael Singer, who's written 2 very good books, Soul Journey and one called The Surrender Experiment. Not sure of the first title, but they're bestsellers. They're easy to find. But one piece of advice that he wrote in a letter, which was just really lovely: surrender who you think you are. Surrender where you think you're going. Surrender where you think you've been. And when I saw that, I thought, that's just so lovely. Surrender. Just give it up to God. Why do we have to hold on to it? Who we think we are, where we think we're going. And I love the last part, where we think we've been. When I saw that, I thought to myself, my goodness, I hold on to a lot of where I think I've been. And I don't just mean memories. I remember my life with Swamiji all the time. And I love remembering my life with Swamiji. That was real. That's worth remembering. But where I think I've been is what I've accomplished, what people have hurt me, who I am in the world, who I'm not in the world, who has yet to give me my due, who still owes me an apology, who I want to get to listen to me, who I wish to love, just all the things that accumulate in the subconscious and then create vrittis to which I have committed energy. And then when I'm trying to meditate and trying to bring my attention up to the spiritual eye, so much of it is pre-committed somewhere else. I can't retrieve it because I don't have mastery over it, because it masters me. And so this is what meditation is about. Meditation is, at least temporarily, for as long as we can, as completely as we can, we withdraw energy as if in death. We withdraw it from the periphery of the body. We withdraw it from the senses. We withdraw it deep into the spine. And then we try to raise that energy up to the spiritual eye and try to concentrate so deeply on that point, on God's presence within us, on God's love for us, on our love for God, all the different ways that we can bring that to a focus, that it will actually break those karmic bonds, break them, so that when the tunnel of light comes, we'll just be so happy to see it. We won't be looking back to what we've been. We'll just be happy to go forward and be what we are, which is really completely different, as I understand it, from what we think we are. They say that waking up into superconsciousness is like the difference, like being asleep in your bed and waking up into morning. Just really extraordinary to contemplate that, isn't it? that we could exist so differently than we presently exist. I have sometimes let me think about how to say this. Now that I'm older, now that I've taken a Nayaswami vow and always wear the same clothes, and I don't wear makeup, I wear my hair short enough that this is how I fix my hair, like that. There's just nothing involved. And for a long time in my life, I've had the practice of not having many mirrors around. I have mirrors where I need them, and I often just cover them so that if I need to see myself, if I'm going out, especially 10 years ago before all of this was true, if I had to go out and give a class and people had to stare at me, I felt it was just a courtesy to them not to be an eyesore. As Swami says, we don't dress for vanity. Dressing nicely, he said, is a service to your fellow man, because after all, they have to look at you. That's how he put it. So he was actually quite emphatic about it being necessary for us to pay enough attention to the way that we looked that we would be a relaxation for people, not a trial. So I always kept enough access to mirrors around me so that I could do that. But as years have passed, as the Nayaswami, as I settled more and more deeply into being a Nayaswami, and all of this and hair and makeup and all that just went away, I have just very few mirrors, and I don't look at them very often because I just simply don't need to. There's no outfit to put together, and there's nothing to deal with. And so every so often I see my face, and it's always the same face. What do you know? And sometimes I see the videos that I do, and it's the same face. What do you know? But I sometimes have this, this odd anxiety, which I know has been the source of mental imbalance to me in past lives, which is just this utter entrapment in my individuality and the inescapability of consciousness. The inescapability of individual consciousness. It can still freak me out, so I can't go there too strongly because I get a little freaked out about it. But now here's the point. What is the point that I'm trying to make? What I've come to realize about the spiritual path, I thought self-realization was that everything got perfect. Be ye therefore perfect as our Father in heaven is perfect. Therefore, going back to the Dr. Lewis story of earlier this evening, that meant that I did everything right. I finally just didn't have flaws anymore. I was always nice. I was always intuitive. I was always wise. Gradually we just get perfect. It took me a while to see that wasn't going to work out. But what I began to get was that self-realization is self-forgetfulness. We forget the small self because we are so engaged with the infinite. And I have a personal theory, which I really think is not true, but I still like it, which is that we never actually get any better. We just don't care anymore. It just doesn't matter. We're just what we are. And that's not where the perfection comes from. The perfection comes in remembering that I am not a bird in a small cage. I'm the infinite. And as soon as I remember that, that's my perfection. My perfection is just to abandon all these mistakes. There was a woman who died at Ananda village not too long ago. Her name was Brinde. And she'd had, she was open about it, so I'm not betraying her confidence in saying it. I mean, there's a wonderful book called Transitions in Grace, which was written by Nalini Graeber. It's available from Crystal Clarity. I highly recommend it. It's a wonderful book. It's the true stories of maybe 25 Ananda people who have died, all of them remarkable. Brinde had a many years struggle with addiction, primarily alcohol, I think. But she had become completely clean and sober, and had been at Ananda, had left Ananda, got herself together, and then came back. She was a very dear person. But during those years of addiction, she had not been able to raise her children, and I believe she had 3. And all 3 of them ended up being raised by others. And when she got clean and sober, one of the things you have to do is you have to try to make reparations for what you did wrong. And I believe one of her children she completely reconciled with. One of them she was never able to find. And one of them absolutely refused to be reconciled with her. But it was so beautiful to see her at the end, because she just had to accept the magnitude of that failure. But she also knew that God and Guru loved her just the same. And you could see the way she was able to just let go of it. Not that she could say it was a good thing, but she was just able to let go of it because God and Guru loved her just the same. And that's where our power comes from. I often quote, because it has to be quoted often, St. Paul says in the Bible, perfect love casts out all fear. And the perfect love is not just the perfect love that we give, it's the perfect love that God gives to us. So here we have Master with Dr. Lewis. It doesn't matter that Dr. Lewis failed to live up to certain things that maybe Master tried to do. Dr. Lewis was loyal and loved Master his whole life, and Master gave that love back beyond any possibility even of our imagining what it means. And in the receiving of that perfect love, all fear about ourselves just disappears. This is our freedom. This is the promise. This is our destiny. What joy, what joy, what joy. God bless you.